Many have already imagined what it would be like if other characters had obtained the bronze cloths. One of these big theories is what it would be like if Goku had obtained the dragon cloth and if Cassius had obtained the Pegasus cloth. Did you know that the most emotional sacrifice of the 12 houses could have been avoided and everything could have been different? Hello, Knights and Amazons. Welcome to another video on the channel. Always wanted to know, I'm Wes, and today I'm going to show you how the story of Knights of the Zodiac would be if it were different. Have you ever wondered what would happen if the Pegasus and dragon armors had fallen into, let's say, less heroic hands than Seiya and Shiryu's? Go ahead and leave your opinions about the cruel fate of Cassius and Goku in the comments. And, of course, click like, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and let's get into this awesome video. To understand what would happen if Cassius and Goku were the protagonists, first we need to understand who they really were, beyond just primary villains or obstacles. For Seiya and Shiryu and Saint Seiya, the concept of destiny is something fascinating. The constellations choose their representatives, but it's the training that shapes whether that human will be able to bear the weight of an armor or not. Cassius wasn't just a brute man, he was a native of the Sanctuary region. And even less than Shayna of Ophiuchus, one of Athena's most relentless silver saints. Cassius's training was focused on brute strength, extreme physical endurance, and the ability to crush opponents without any mercy. In the Sanctuary, there is a strict hierarchy, and Cassius represented physical strength. He was the one who, by birthright, should protect Greece. There's already a story that only those who followed the classic anime know in depth, since he is an original character from the animation. He was created to give depth to Shiryu's past. He trained at the 5 ancient peaks of Rosen, under the guidance of the old master Ohko of Libra, one of the survivors of the last holy war. While Shiryu sought harmony and justice, Goku was driven by anger, by the loneliness of having lost his family, and by the desire to be the strongest at any cost. Now imagine the scene. In Greece, the sanctuary is packed. The Grand Master watches from above. Seiya and Cassius face off. In the original story, Seiya awakens his cosmos, cuts Cassius's ear, and wins the armor. But what if Cassius's cosmos had awakened out of pure hatred? And what if he had crushed Seiya's head? Right there, Cassius, as Pegasus, would be a completely different knight. To begin with, the Pegasus armor is known for its agility and its long-range attacks, like Cassius's Pegasus Meteor. With his more than 2 meters of height and dozens of kilos of lung, a lot of muscle, he wouldn't use the armor to be more agile, but to be stronger. He would be a war tank. Upon receiving the Pegasus armor from the hands of the Grand Master, who was actually Saga of Gemini in disguise, Cassius would become a loyal servant to the Sanctuary. Unlike Seiya, who always questioned the authority of the Sanctuary and searched for his sister, Cassius had a unique devotion to his master, Sheena. If the Sanctuary ordered him to eliminate the Bronze Saints in the Galactic War, he would do it without hesitation. Here comes an interesting point in these characters' story, their relationship with the cosmos. Cassius technically didn't master the cosmos at first. He relied only on physical strength. If he won the armor, he would have to learn how to burn the universe within himself. With his aggressive temperament, the Black Pegasus might not even need to exist, because the Bronze Pegasus himself would be a figure of terror representing that constellation. He wouldn't fight for Athena, he would fight for Shayna's honor and for recognition from the Sanctuary. Meanwhile, in China, the tension between Ohko and Shiryu reaches its limit. Ohko has always been the tiger, the complementary opposite of the dragon in Chinese mythology. The tiger and the dragon are forces that balance each other. If Ohko had defeated Shiryu and convinced Ohko that brute strength was the way to protect the world, he would have inherited the dragon armor. In the depths of the Rosen waterfall, Dragon Ohko would be a force of nature. If Shiryu is the impenetrable shield, Ohko would be the spear that breaks everything. Unlike Shiryu, who is calm and strategic, Ohko fights with the instinct of a predator. He wouldn't have hesitated to use the dragon's wrath to kill his opponents right away. An important detail, the dragon armor has the strongest shield among all the bronze armors. In Ohko's hands, this shield wouldn't just be for defense, it would be a weapon of impact. Imagine Ohko's fighting style, which mixes aggressive martial arts and air pressure, enhanced by the dragon's cosmo. He would possibly be the most dangerous bronze saint in terms of hand-to-hand combat. If we had Cassius and Ohko instead of Seiya and Shiryu, The Galactic War in Tokyo would be a massacre. Cassius wouldn't have the patience for the tournament rules, and Ohko would see the other saints, like Hyoga, Shun, and the others, as weak prey. The main group's dynamic would die before it even started. Seiya, Shiryu, Hyoga, and Shun. They formed a bond of friendship and brotherhood because they shared the same ideal of justice and the same search for their loved ones. Cassius and Ohko are solitary and resentful wolves. When Ikki, the Phoenix, appears to steal the Sagittarius gold cloth, there would be no unity to stop him. Ohko would probably try to fight Ikki alone to prove that he is the strongest. Meanwhile, Cassius would be more concerned with taking the cloth back to the sanctuary to please Sheena and the Grand Master. As a result, Ikki would have a much easier time fulfilling his revenge, since the hero's team would be fragmented by huge egos. Here, things get really dark. If Cassius and Ohko were the official knights, they would technically be on the side of the sanctuary, which at the time was controlled by the evil side of Saga of Gemini. They would be sent to hunt Sayori and Kido, the reincarnation of Athena. Can you imagine Cassius receiving orders to attack the Grodd Foundation? He probably wouldn't have the moral dilemmas that Seiya had. However, there is a factor called Cassius's heart. As we saw at the end of his journey in the 12 houses, Cassius had an immense capacity for love focused on Sheena. If he realized that the sanctuary's plans put Sheena in danger, or that the Grand Master was a traitor, his loyalty would change violently. Ohko, on the other hand, would have a much harder redemption arc. He would need to understand that power is nothing without a purpose. In the anime, he only finds peace moments before dying, after fighting Shiryu. If he were the Dragon Knight, maybe he would never have learned the lesson of humility, becoming a tyrannical knight, until he met a gold saint, or until Ikki of Phoenix put him in his place. If we reach the 12 Houses arc with Cassius as Pegasus and Ohko as Dragon, the fate of the gold saints would be different. Aldebaran of Taurus, for example, would not let Cassius pass just by breaking a horn off his armor. Aldebaran respected Seiya's fighting spirit and determination. With Cassius, the fight would be a clash of brute strength, and most likely Taurus would win because his cosmos is vastly superior. And as for Death Mask, Shiryu defeated the Cancer Saint because his soul was pure, and the gold cloth rejected evil. Ohko, with his violent temper, might even get along with Death Mask at first, or else the worst could happen. The most iconic moment of Cassius in the original story is his sacrifice at the House of Leo. He kills himself so that Leo Iolia can awaken from Saga's Imperial Satan Strike and stop attacking Seiya. If Cassius were the Pegasus Saint, the one to sacrifice herself for him would be Sheena, and the fate of the Gold Saint would be the result. The result would be an absurd drama. For the story, Cassius would have to see the woman he loves die so that he could go on, which would probably turn him into one, awakening a cosmos of rage. And he found the one that would impress you. They ask why the author, Masami Kurumada, and the anime's scriptwriters, in Ohko's case, decided to give such tragic endings to these characters. The answer is simple. They serve as mirrors of what has become. Cassius is the example of what happens when you have the physique, but you don't have the right spiritual motivation. He fought for China, not for Athena. He was a good man, trapped in a cruel system. Ohko is an example of talent wasted by arrogance. He had as much skill as Shiryu, maybe even more raw physical strength, but he didn't have the peace of mind necessary to bear the title of knight. In the end, the existence of Cassius and Ohko is fundamental for us to value the journey of Seiya and Shiryu. They show that being a knight of Athena, it's not about who hits the hardest or who is the biggest, but about who is willing to fall 1,000 times and get back up for the sake of others' lives. If Cassius were Pegasus and Ohko were the dragon, Saint Seiya wouldn't be a story of hope, but a classic Greek tragedy about powerful men destroyed by their own character flaws and by the cruel system of Saga's sanctuary. They would probably end up like the Black Knights, or just pawns who would be discarded as soon as they were no longer useful. But do you think Cassius as Pegasus would be able to awaken the seventh sense out of anger? And what about Ohko? Would he be able to sacrifice his sight for his friends, just like Shiryu did so many times? The fate of these two characters is one of the saddest and most realistic points of this work. showing that not everyone who trains hard can reach the brilliance of the stars. I hope you enjoyed this analysis about what the universe of Saint Seiya would be like with Ohko and Cassius becoming bronze saints. Leave your theories in the comments, I want to know your opinion, and, of course, thank you for watching this video until the end. See you next time. Burn your cosmos to infinity.